I always say I'm going to attempt to make it short, but since we've been delayed this morning, I will simply say thank you for being here. We try to start, my ranking member and I started this conversation in the 118th Congress in his new role and my new role with a few things, commitments. One was for good debate, but productive debate and try to dispense with some of the ancillary partisan stuff. And so focusing on policy and substance. The other was, let's agree on the math on our balance sheet. Like, Democrats may have some of their own ideas on how to address our rapidly deteriorating fiscal health, and Republicans may have their ideas, but we should all, I think, at least acknowledge, and we have, that the situation that we face is unsustainable, and something has to happen. I was encouraged also that, and that I give my ranking member as much credit as anybody, that we were going to try to work together as much as we can, where we can find agreement, to fix a budget process that has failed us and is failing, I should say, maybe to motivate members to do what every American family, business, state and local government has to do, and that's develop a budget, enforce the budget, if you will, live within your means. That's just not happening in Washington, and it hasn't happened. And speaking of things that haven't happened here, we got a budget out of this committee, albeit a Republican budget, and it was a budget that was passed on a partisan basis, so I acknowledge that. It's our sort of Republican blueprint for how we would manage the fiscal affairs of this country, okay, and address the deficit and the debt. But we haven't had an oversight hearing, gentlemen, in over 6 years. So we're going to exercise our oversight responsibility. The third thing that I would suggest is a new phenomenon here, sadly enough, for this committee, is you all haven't presented in 12 years, is my understanding. They haven't presented the numbers on the trust fund to the budget committee, who is supposed to steward the nation's resources. And by the way, purely analytical here, this is just a purely analytical statement, and I would like for you guys to confirm it or deny it in your comments and in your remarks this morning. But of the 30-year unfunded liability that our nation has on its books, and that represents, Mr. Scott Peters, $140 trillion, 98 to 99% of it are the two programs that are represented by these gentlemen. So there's that fiscal impact. And then there's the deeper and maybe even just more personal, getting away from the numbers, the impact of doing nothing. That is, Republicans claim we have plans to address it, but words are cheap, and we haven't enacted any of those plans. So as we say, Scott, in the church, faith without works is dead. And I've heard a lot of plans from my Democrat friends, and no matter how well thought out those plans may or may not be, faith without works is dead. So just a lot of lip service from a lot of people, which is why we also did something that was unprecedented in a decade. We passed a bipartisan commission that would have knuckleheads from both sides of the aisle who would, in all seriousness, thoughtful leaders in a bipartisan way, looking at two of the most important programs for our seniors: retirement security, healthcare security, 60 plus million people today counting on it, 10,000 people a day counting on it. And if we do nothing, and let's make sure this is clear, and then I'm done. If we do nothing, Ms. Schakowsky, nothing. If we do nothing, I don't want to touch it, because if somebody's going to send out a mailer that shows y'all throwing grandmother off the cliff, And we're not going to touch it because some organization on the outside is going to say it's a backdoor way to tax the American people and stab President Trump in the back and all these crazy things. This is how this town keeps us from being the kind of leaders that our nation needs now more than ever. So my prayer is we unite, not as Republicans and not as Democrats, but as Americans. And Tom Swazi's capable of that. That's why I'm encouraged. He's an add. He is an add. He is a value add to this committee in that regard. So I won't get everything I want to solve it probably. They probably won't get everything they want, but we must do it or there will be an automatic cut. We will not have not only not saved the program and strengthened it, we will have caused it to basically collapse in terms of insolvency, and there will be an automatic cut to beneficiaries. On Social Security within 10, and we got a little bit of grace in the last set of numbers on Medicare, but that's going to happen in that program too if we don't do something about it. So God bless America. Let's get to work. My ranking member now, as much time as you may consume.